He walked into the hospital that night, expecting to save lives, not to be humiliated. Dressed in his white coat, credentials clear, he reached out his hand, only to be met with cold refusal. A patient, desperate and weak, looked him in the eye and turned away, simply because of the color of his skin. But what neither of them knew was that within moments, the very doctor he rejected would hold his life in his hands. How could prejudice blind someone so deeply, until fate left them no choice? Dr. Marcus Ellison was no stranger to long nights. At just 32, he had built a reputation as one of the most skilled emergency physicians in the city. His colleagues respected him, his patients trusted him, and yet, outside the hospital walls, he carried a burden that had nothing to do with medicine. Being a black doctor in America meant proving himself twice as hard every single day. That evening, the ER was buzzing with the usual chaos. Sirens wailing outside, stretchers being wheeled in, voices calling for charts and supplies. Marcus adjusted his stethoscope and prepared for another round of patients. For him, every case mattered. Every heartbeat was worth fighting for. But amid the rush, a new patient was brought in, a middle-aged man, pale and sweating, his condition critical. Nurses rushed him onto a gurney, attaching monitors as Marcus stepped forward, hand extended, ready to reassure the man he was in good hands. That's when it happened. The man recoiled, refusing to meet Marcus's handshake. His eyes narrowed, his lips tightened. He turned his face away as though the touch of a black doctor was worse than the pain tearing through his chest. The room fell quiet for just a moment, tension thick in the air. Marcus didn't flinch. Years of training, of facing doubt and judgment, had taught him one thing. Dignity meant moving forward, even when respect wasn't given. What no one in that room could know was that the man's survival in the next few minutes would depend entirely on the doctor he had just rejected. The monitors beeped urgently as the patient's condition worsened. His name was Andre Caldwell, a man in his late 50s, known in the city as a wealthy businessman with a sharp tongue and an even sharper pride. Years of stress and unchecked habits had caught up to him, and now, with chest pains radiating down his arm, he was on the edge of a massive cardiac event. The nurses exchanged quick glances, unsure of what to do after the man's obvious rejection of Dr. Ellison. One younger nurse hesitated, her voice soft as she whispered, "Doctor, should we call someone else?" But Marcus stood firm. His voice was calm, steady, professional. "We don't have time for that. He needs intervention now." Andre's breathing grew shallow, his face flushed with fear and defiance all at once. Despite his condition, he turned his head and muttered weakly, "I don't want him." His words, though faint, cut deep in the silence of the room. For Marcus, this wasn't the first time. He had felt it in patients who doubted his credentials, in families who asked for a second opinion before he'd even finished introducing himself. But here, in this moment, there was no room for hesitation. He could see the storm on the heart monitor, the signs of impending cardiac arrest. Seconds mattered. He moved quickly, issuing commands with precision. "Oxygen, IV access, prepare the crash cart just in case." The staff obeyed, their training overriding the awkward tension hanging in the air. Still, the looks on their faces betrayed the truth. They were waiting to see how Marcus would handle this rejection under pressure. Andre's chest tightened further, his body trembling as sweat poured down his temples. His arrogance was slipping, replaced by panic. His lips parted as though he wanted to say something, but all that came out was a desperate gasp. The very man he had refused to trust was now the only barrier between him and death. Inside, Marcus felt the weight of the moment pressing down. Not just the responsibility of saving a life, but the bitter reminder that racism could appear even on the brink of death. He steadied himself, focusing only on the patient's survival. His emotions had no place here, only skill, only action. The tension in the room thickened as Marcus prepared for the next step. He knew it would take everything he had to stabilize Andre. The beeping monitor grew more erratic, the patient's pulse weaker with every passing second. Everyone in the ER leaned forward, waiting for the moment when life itself would hang in the balance. And then, as the alarms blared and Andre's body jolted in pain, Marcus knew the climax was here. The monitor flatlined. A sharp, piercing alarm echoed through the ER. Andre's body went limp, his skin turning a frightening shade of gray. Gasps filled the room as nurses rushed closer, panic threatening to take over. But Marcus didn't flinch. He snapped into motion, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Start compressions, now!" One nurse pressed firmly on Andre's chest as Marcus prepared the defibrillator. The weight of the moment pressed down on him, not just the pressure of saving a man's life, but the cruel irony of saving the very man who had rejected him moments earlier. Charging, clear. The first shock jolted Andre's body violently, but the monitor remained silent. Marcus didn't stop. Sweat dripped down his brow as he recalculated, fighting the clock with every second. He adjusted the pads, his hands steady, his mind razor-sharp. Again, clear. Another jolt. Still nothing. A nurse whispered under her breath, "Doctor." But Marcus silenced the doubt with a firm, unwavering look. He wouldn't quit, not now. He resumed compressions himself, pouring strength into each push, counting in his head, blocking out the noise, the prejudice, the unspoken doubts. This wasn't about pride. It wasn't about race. It was about life. The fragile line that separated a man from never opening his eyes again. Then, on the third shock, the impossible happened. A faint blip appeared on the monitor. Another. And then, a steady rhythm returned. The room erupted in relieved gasps. Andre's chest rose with shallow breaths, his pulse weak but present. He was alive. Silence fell for just a moment as everyone realized what had just occurred. The man who had refused to shake Marcus's hand owed his very heartbeat to the doctor he had dismissed. Marcus exhaled slowly, his hands steady as he gave final instructions to stabilize Andre. Inside, he felt the weight of the moment, not triumph, but the quiet strength of doing what was right, even in the face of hate. And as Andre's eyes flickered open, confusion and realization washing over him, the truth was undeniable. Prejudice had nearly cost him his life. Andre lay quietly in his hospital bed, the steady rhythm of the heart monitor echoing like a second chance he never expected. His eyes wandered to Dr. Marcus Ellison, who stood at his bedside, calmly reviewing charts, his professionalism unshaken despite what had happened earlier. For the first time, Andre saw past the white coat, past the stethoscope, and into the humanity of the man who had just saved him. The weight of his earlier refusal pressed heavy on him. Shame settled in, deeper than the chest pain that had brought him here. Marcus didn't gloat. He didn't seek recognition or apology. He had done what he was trained to do, save a life, no matter whose. But for Andre, that reality cut deeper than any scalpel. A man he had judged unworthy of respect was the very reason he was breathing. Word of the incident spread quietly among the staff. Some whispered about the irony, others about the grace with which Marcus carried himself. But beyond the walls of that ER, the story represented something larger, a truth many prefer to ignore. Racism doesn't just wound dignity, it blinds us to the value of another person, sometimes until it's almost too late. Andre's life was spared that night. But the question that lingered was heavier than his survival. How many more lives, how many more moments of humanity are lost because of prejudice that refuses to let go? And for viewers watching, this isn't just Andre's story or Marcus's story. It's America's story. It's about the unseen battles fought in silence, the dignity stolen in subtle moments, and the resilience required to rise above hate. So ask yourself, if you were lying on that hospital bed, who would you want by your side? Would it matter the color of their skin or the strength of their heart? This story is a reminder. Respect is not optional, it's essential. If it moved you, share it. Speak up. And let's make sure the next heartbeat saved isn't weighed down by prejudice.